So let's break down all this news out of China with Elizabeth Economy. She's the Director for Asia Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. She joins us now. Liz, what can we make first off with the yuan strengthening? There's so much focus on when the Chinese are going to allow the yuan to freely float, or at least allow a little bit more flexibility. Are we going to see this by year end, as President Obama has said he hopes?
I think at this point it's a little bit too early to get overly excited about the slight appreciation that we've seen in the very recent past. There are a lot of mixed signals coming out of Beijing right now about the issue of the appreciation of the yuan. So from the People's Bank of China, which has been very much pushing to let the yuan float more freely over the past even 6 months, you hear noises about 2 to 3, even maybe as much as 5% of an appreciation by year end. At the same time, you have the Ministry of Commerce, which is concerned overwhelmingly about maintaining China's exports, talking about the primary concern being maintaining the stability of the yuan. And an article last week on Wednesday in a major Chinese newspaper saying, in fact, do not expect any significant appreciation, at least for the next 6 months. I think a lot is simply going to depend on whether or not we see a consistent sort of rebound in Chinese exports over the next 6 months. It can't just be sort of the cloudy numbers that we're seeing coming out for December and January. It's going to have to be a sustained rebound in exports, I think, to get the Chinese government to resolve this issue internally.
Yeah, tell me about that internal debate, Liz, because you speak to investors as esteemed as George Soros, and he says, you know, it would be in China's own interest to allow the currency to appreciate. Put out all the populist noise about it and the trade wars and everything here in the U.S., it would serve China well, he says. What is going to determine this internally? Tell me the two schools of thought.
Well, I think you have, again, the People's Bank of China. It's concerned about inflation. You have broader issues within the Chinese government, broader, agencies, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, perhaps even concerned about trade protectionism elsewhere in the United States, in the EU, believing that China is maintaining an artificially low currency, and therefore the U.S. and others starting to put up protectionist barriers. On the other hand, you have the Ministry of Commerce, which is responsible at some level for the hundreds of millions of Chinese that are employed in China's factories, overwhelmingly concerned about export levels. And again, the numbers that have come out for December and January are somewhat clouded by the fact at different times of the Chinese New Year, from this year to last year. And so we can't really predict at this point how this debate is going to play out.
How significant is it now that we seem to be getting some detail on just who and which schools might be responsible for these hacking attacks on Google and other alleged tech firms? I mean, is it important that we know who exactly initiated these, or is the idea that it just originated within China enough?
Well, I think it is important that we seem to be getting a clearer sense of who in particular is responsible for the hacking. My guess is that the U.S. government and others, maybe Google even, have had an idea for a much longer time than simply the past 2 or 3 days that's being reported in the media. But it is important. We need to know who's responsible, because that's the only way we can begin to deal with this issue with the Chinese.
All right, Liz, we're going to have to leave it there, but one quick question to you. Is Google actually going to exit China?
I think the noise is coming out of Google. They're going to try to find a way to work with the Chinese. I don't think we're going to see a full exit of Google.
Thanks so much, Liz.